Hello everyone, welcome back to Code Dev Academy. In today's video, we're going to create a website for Elon Musk's Tesla using just HTML and CSS. So if you're new to web development or you're already been into web development, this video is for you. So if you're ready to level up your skills, let's get started. So now, to build up this project, we're going to need a CSS file and a HTML file. And as you can see here, I have an images folder, which I named it to be images. And when I go in, now I have three different images in here. The first image, I'm going to use it for my logo. The second image is going to be in my main body. And the third image is going to be as an icon. So that's all I have here. So now let's head to our VS Code here. As you can see, for my VS Code here, I have my HTML file here and my CSS file also by the right hand side. And for my HTML file, for the title, I named it to be Tesla, and I've linked my HTML file to the CSS file. So the first thing you're going to do to create this website now is to create a main div, which I'm going to write .main. This main div is going to contain the whole body of our website. It's going to contain our navbar, it's going to contain the content, it's going to contain the image, it's going to contain every single thing. So the first thing I'm going to do within this main, then I'm going to create a nav. Then within the navbar, I'm going to create a logo. And the logo is going to contain an image. So I'm going to write img. After writing img, I'm going to insert my image. I'm going to go into images. Then I'm going to select my logo PNG, just like that. For now, I'm done with my logo. I'm going to come below it and create a UL. Then I'm going to write UL, LI, and I'm going to write E. Now, I'm going to link it to nothing. And for my first item here, I'm going to write home and paste it. And I'm going to need 5 of it, so I'm just going to add one more. Then for the second one, I'm going to change it to about. So let me just update this. Now I'm done updating my list items, so I'm just going to come to the first one here and give it a class name. The reason I'm giving it a class name, I'm going to show you later on the video, which you're going to actually understand why I'm giving it a class name. So I'm going to say active. I'm going to save. Now after I'm done with my list items, then I'm going to come below it and create a button. So I'm going to write button. Then within the button, I'm going to create a link, which I'm going to link it to nothing. For the text here, I'm going to insert get code. So I'm going to write get code here. Just like this. Now I'm done with my navigation. So I'm going to come back to my CSS here and start styling. So for my general styling, what I'm going to write here first, margin to be 0, then I'm going to say padding. And for the padding is also going to be 0, then I'm going to say box sizing. For the box sizing is going to be border box. After having that to be border box, I'm going to say list style because I have links and it's going to come with some dot in there. That's why I'm giving it a list style so that I won't be seeing the dot. Then for the list style, it's going to be none. After making it to be none, I'm going to say text decoration because I'm going to have links in them. By default, they are going to come with underlines. So I don't want the underlines, I want them to disappear. So I'm going to say text decoration none. After making the text decoration to be none, I'm going to say font family. For the font family, it's going to be Arial. Then I'm going to say outline. For the outline, it's going to be none also. Now, this is my general styling that I gave it. So after having that, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to target my main. For the main, I'm going to say .main. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to give it a weight. For the weight, I'm going to say weight is going to be 100%. 100% of what? 100% of my body. Since my domain is also inside the body, so I'm going to say 100%. And for the height is going to be 100 VH. Then I'm going to give it a background. Then I'm going to say background. Then I'm going to say radial gradient. If you don't know much about linear gradient and radial gradient, then comment it down below then I will make a video on it. But for now, I've only made video on linear gradient. I haven't actually made video on radial gradient. So if you want me to talk about radial gradient, then comment it down below. And if you want to watch the video on radial gradient, I'll put a card on it, and I'll also put a link in the description box so you can go and check it out. But for now, let's continue with radial gradient. So after having it to be radial gradient, I'm going to insert the color. After every color, you put comma between them. 004074, which is my first color. Then make sure you put comma. Then you insert your second color, which is going to be 032030, which is your second color. Now let's save. After having that, I'm going to come just before my second color here and put 10%. Then I'm going to separate it with comma. Now I'm done with my main. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to target my nav. So I'm going to say nav. So the first thing I'm going to do for the nav, I'm going to give it padding. And for the padding, it's going to be 10 pixel top and bottom and 25 pixel left and right. After having that, then I'm going to give it a display flex because I want all my items that are in my nav to be flexed. So I'm going to say display flex. And I'm going to say align item center. Then after giving it a center, I'm going to say justify content. For the justify content, it's going to be space between. And that's it. Then I'm going to target my logo, which I inserted an image inside. So I'm going to say .logo. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a weight. And for the weight, I'm going to make it to be 100 pixel. Then I'm going to give it a height. For the height also, I'm going to make it to be 100 pixel. Then now I'm going to target my IMG image for my logo. Then I'm going to say .logo. And I'm going to say IMG. So I'm going to give it a weight. And for the weight, I want it to be 100% of the size of my D for the logo. So then I'm going to say 100%. For the height also is going to be 100%. 100%. Now I'm done with my logo. Let me save and let's show you what our result is. As you can see, here is my logo. And now I'm going to target my list items. Then I'll target my button. So let's get back to our CSS here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to target my UL, which is my list item. So I'm going to say UL. I'm going to say nav UL. So the first thing I'm going to do for my UL here, I'm going to give it a display flex because as you saw it, they were stacking on top of each other because they were block elements. So now making it a display flex, they're going to be flex items. So now the first thing I'm going to say display flex. After making it display flex, I'm going to say align item center. Then I'm going to say gap because I want space between them. For the gap, I'm going to make it to be 1 rem. And that's all I need for my UL. Then I'm going to target my list items, which are the home, about, service, blog, contact. They are my list items. That's why, as you can see here, they are inside a link. So I'm going to say now, I'm going to target my UL, then I'm going to target my links. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to give them a font size. For the font size, I'm going to make it to be 1 rem. After making it to be 1 rem, I'm going to give it a font weight. For the font weight, I'm going to make it to be bold. Then I'm going to give it a color. For the color, it's going to be white. Because I'm going to have an over effect on it, so I'm going to give it a transition. So I'm going to say transition. For the transition, I'm going to make it to be ease. And it's going to be 0.5 seconds. And for now, that's all I need. Then I'm going to give it the hover effect. So I'm going to say now the UL, then I'm going to target my links. Then I'm going to say hover. So when you hover on it, I want the color to change. For the color, it's going to be 00ABF0. Just like this. This is the color I want. So let's save and let's check our output here. As you can see, when I hover, now I'm having this color change. So but now I want this my first items, which is home, to have a permanent color like this. So let's head back to it. So as you can see here, I gave it a class name of active. So I'm going to copy this active here. I'm going to copy it just like with Ctrl+C, copy. I'm going to head back here. So this, after this my hover here, I'm going to write comma. Then I'm going to say now. Then I'm going to target the UL. Then I'm going to insert my active.active. Just like this. Then I'm going to save here. So after saving it, now I'm going to be having my home to be having a permanent color like this. So the rest, when I hover, the color will change, but for the home, it's having a permanent color. So that's the reason I gave it a class name. So now let's head back. As you can see here, I targeted my logo, my list items. Now the next is my button. So I'm going to say now, and I'm going to target the button. So the first one I'm going to give for this my button is padding, and I'm going to make it 9 pixel top and bottom and 25 pixel left and right. So after having that, I'm going to give it a background color. For the color, I'm going to make it to be having this bright color, so I'm going to make it to be having this. Then after giving it the background color, I'm going to give it a border radius. Now for the border radius, I'm going to make it to be 1 mm because I want it to be having a very curved edges. Then after that, I'm going to say border none. Border none just like this. Then I'm going to say cursor pointer. Then what I'm going to target next is my link. As you can see here, I have a button, then I have a link which contains my text here. So I'm going to say nav. I'm going to target my button. Then I'm going to say A. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to give it a font size. For the font size, I'm going to make it to be 0.8 rem. After having that, I'm going to give it a font weight. For the font weight, it's obviously going to be bold. After having this, I'm going to give it a color. For the color, I'm going to make it to be black. Then, so after that, I'm going to say when I hover on this my button, I want some changes to happen. So I'm going to say nav. I'm going to target my button. Then I'm going to say hover. So now when I hover on this my button, I want a box shadow to appear. So I'm going to say box shadow. Then I'm going to say 0. For the second one, I'm going to make it 5 pixel. For the blood, I want it to be 20 pixel blood. Then I'm going to insert my color, which is going to be having this light looking color. Now let's check our output here. This is actually what we're having. When I hover, now I'm having this box shadow. Here are my list items and my logo is also set. So the first thing I'm going to do for my HTML here is to create a div. And this div, I'm going to name it to be hero. Then within this div, first I'm going to create a div. Within this my hero div, I'm going to create another div, which I'm going to name it to be content. And this content is going to contain all my text here. So the first thing I'm going to do inside my content div, I'm going to create a h1. Then I'm going to insert a text inside, empowering the feature which then to write span. Still inside my h1. For the span, I'm going to write AI and robotics. I'm done with my h1. Now I'm going to write a paragraph. For the paragraph, I'm just going to insert a lorem text just like this. Then I'm going to rate it like, let's say 20. Then after having this my paragraph, now I'm going to create a div. And for this div, I'm going to name the div to be btn, which is going to contain my buttons and my icon. So I'm going to say .btn. Then within it, I'm going to create a button. And this button is going to contain a link inside, which is the link is going to be having my text. So for the text, I'm going to name it to be explore now. Then after having that, I'm going to create my item. So within it, I'm going to insert my image. So I'm going to say image. So now for the source, I'm going to go into my images folder, then select my YouTube icon, and that's all I need for my BTN. Then after that, I'm going to go back to my CSS here. And now I'm going to target my hero. So I'm going to say that hero. So the first thing I'm going to do for it, I'm just going to give it a padding. And it's going to be 10 pixels, space top and bottom, and 25 pixels, space left and right. And that's all I need for my hero. Then I'm going to target my content, which contains my paragraph, my h1s, and my buttons. So I'm going to say content. The first thing I'm going to do for this my content, I'm going to give it a position. And for the position, I'm going to make it to be absolute. After having that, I'm going to say top. For the top, I'm going to make it to be 30%. Then I'm going to say left. For the left, I'm going to make it to be 5%. Then I'm going to give it a max width. So I'm going to say max width. For the max width, I want it to be 560 pixels. So I'm going to say 560 pixels. After having that, I'm going to give it padding. So I'm going to say padding. For the padding, I want 10 pixels space top and bottom and 25 pixels space left and right. And that's all I need. Then I'm going to go into my H1. my h1 that is inside my content div. Then I'm going to say dot content. Then I'm going to target my h1. So the first thing I'm going to do for it, I'm going to give it a font size. For the font size, I'm going to make it to be 2.1 rem. Then I'm going to say font weight. For the font weight, it's going to be bold. After having that to be bold, I'm going to change the color. For the color, it's going to be white. Now I'm going to target my span. As you can see, for my h1, I have a span inside. So I'm going to say dot content. Then I'm going to say h1. Then I'm going to target my span. So for this my span, the first thing I'm going to do for it, I'm just going to change the color. So for the color, I'm going to make it lighter color. So I'm going to make it just like this. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to target my paragraph, which contains my lorem text. So I'm going to say content, and I'm going to target my paragraph. So what I'm going to do for this my paragraph here, I'm going to change the color. For the color, I want it to be white. After having that, I'm going to give the font size. For the font size, I'm going to make it 0.6 rem. Then I'm going to give a font weight. And for the font weight, I'm obviously going to make it to be bold. Then I will want a line height, the space between each line of the text, which I'm going to say line height. If you have any question that maybe if you have seen a property I didn't explain it well or you didn't understand it, please ask me in the comment section and I'll be there to answer you. So I'm going to say line height. For the line height, is going to be 18. After making it to be 18 pixels, I'm going to leave letter spacing. This letter spacing, what it does, it's the space between each letters. The line height determines from the first line to the second line of the text the space that is going to be between them. Letter spacing is the space between each letters of a text. So I'm going to say for the letter spacing, which I'm going to make it to be 0.5 pixel. You can work with the values and just have something. You can also change the values just to see each property, how each value reacts to a certain property. So after giving the letter spacing to be 0.5 pixel for this my paragraph text, which is the lorem text, as you can see it from my HTML, the next thing I'm going to do, there should be space between my paragraph and this my h1. If you look at my HTML here, I first have a h1, then I have a paragraph. So I want a space between them. To have this space, I'm going to say margin top. For the margin top, I'm going to make it to be 20 pixels. And I believe that's what I need for my paragraph. So what I'm going to target next, I'm going to target my buttons. If you look at my HTML here, I have a div which I named it to be .btn, and within this div I have a button and I have an icon. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to target the parent element, which is the .btn, I'm going to say .btn. The first thing I'm going to do in this .btn, I want there should be space between my text and my buttons. So I'm going to say margin top. For the margin top, I'm going to make it to be 20 pixels. After that, I'm going to say display flex, because I'm having two items inside this div, which is the button and the icon. Because of that, I'm going to make the two buttons to be flexed. So I'm going to say display flex. After having that, I'm going to say gap. For the gap, I'm going to make it to be 2 rem, just like that. And that's all I need for my .btn. Now I'm going to target my button, which is inside my .btn. So I'm going to say .btn. After having that, I'm going to say button. So now, the first thing I'm going to do for this my button is to give it a size. And to give it that size, I'm going to use padding. For the padding, I'm going to say 9 pixel, space top and bottom, and 35 pixel, space left and right. So after having that, I'm going to give it a background color. For the background color, I have a color. So for this background color, I'm going to give it this light color. After having that, I'm going to have a border radius. For the border radius, I'm going to make it to be 1m. After having that, for the borders, I'm going to say border none, so that the border will not appear. With that, then I'm going to say cursor pointer. Now I'm going to target my text, which is for my button. As you can see, I have a button here. Then I inserted a link inside, and that link contains my text. So now I'm going to say .btn. I'm going to target my button. Then I'm going to target my link. for this my link, the first thing I'm going to give for it, I'm going to give it a font size. For the font size, I'm going to make it to be 0.8 rem. That's the first thing I have for it. Then I'm going to give it a font weight. For the font weight, I'm going to make it to be bold. After having that, I'm going to give it a color. For the color, it's going to be black. So the text is going to be having a black color. So now I'm done with my button. So what I'm going to target next is my icon, which is this my icon that contains a YouTube icon. Now what I'm going to focus now is my icon. As you can see just below my button, I have an image icon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to my CSS here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to say .btn. I'm going to say .btn. After that, I'm going to target my eye. Then I'm going to say img, just like this. So the first thing I'm going to do for this my image, I'm going to give it a weight. For the weight, I'm going to make it to be 45 pixel. For the height, it's also going to be 45 pixel, just like this. After giving it a height and a weight, then I'm going to give it border radius. For the border radius, is going to be 60%. After having it to be 60%, I'm going to say border. For the border, is going to be 1 pixel solid. Then I'm going to insert this bright color, just like this. After having that, then I'm going to give it a background color. For the background color, is also going to be having the same color as my border. Then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to give it a cursor to be pointer. Now I'm done with my icon. So let's first of all see our output. As you can see here, this is our button and this is our icon, our YouTube icon. That's all we have. And here is the space that we inserted, imagine top. So now we are going to need some hover effect. So let's head back to our CSS. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to say .btn. Then after giving it a .btn, I'm going to say img, which is my image inside my btn div. Then I'm going to say hover. So what I'm going to do now here, I'm going to say box shadow. For the box shadow, I want it to be 0. Then the second is going to be 5 pixel. Then the third, which is the blood, which is going to be 10 pixel. Then I'm going to insert the color I want it to be having the shadow with, which is this color. So now let's check what we have here. So when we hover here, now we're having this kind of shadow here appearing at our icon. So now we need to insert this same shadow to our button. So let's head back to our CSS here. We can actually insert it there, but we can go to our nav, which is having the same output. We can just come here and instead of putting nav, we can just remove this nav. So in this our page, any button that it sees, it's going to have this same box shadow. So because I have removed the nav, that means it is not specific that the button that is inside my nav. Now it's just saying button then hover. So any button is going to be having this hover, which is better to be specific, but just because it's just 2 buttons I have on my page, so that's why I just targeted my buttons. So let's head back and show you what I'm talking about. Now as you can see here, our button is also having the same box shadow as this my button also. Now I have my icon having the box shadow, my 2 buttons are also having the box shadow, and my list items are also having their color changing. Now I'm going to insert my robot image. I'm going to come back to my HTML here. Just after this my content div, closing tag for this my content div, but it should be inside my hero div. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to create a div with a class name of robot. So I'm going to say .robot, just like this. Now I have a div with a class name of robot. So I'm going to save here and head back to my CSS here. So after having my div with a class name of robot, I'm going to head to my CSS here. I write .robot. So now the first thing I'm going to give it a weight. And for the weight, it's going to be 400 pixels. And for the height, it's also going to be 350 pixels, just like this. After having that, then I'm going to give it a background. And for this background, it's going to contain my image. So I'm going to say URL, just like this. I'm going to go to my images folder with a slash, then I'm going to select my robot image, just like this. So just before it's closing, I'm going to say no repeat, which is going to help in just repeating the image once. Then after that, I'm going to say background size. For the background size, I'm going to make it to be cover. Then I'm going to say background position. For the background position, I'm going to make it to be center. I'm going to save here. Now, after having my background position to be center, I'm going to say position. If you can remember, I gave my main to be a position relative. Now I'm going to make this to be position absolute. After giving the position absolute, I'm going to say top to be 15%. Then I'm going to say right. For the right, it's going to also be 15%. Just like this. And let's save and let's see our output. As you can see here, our image is appearing at the other side of our page. And this is actually how I want our image to be. And our button is at this side of the page, our list items are here, and our logo is also at this side of the page. We have come to the end of this tutorial, and I hope you have actually gained something out of it. Please, if you have, please don't forget to like this video and give us a feedback on your experience watching this video. Give us your feedback, because it might mean nothing to you, but for us it's going to help us in creating more videos to know what you guys like. I want to know, because your feedback is what is going to help me to create more quality content for you guys. So if you want to join us in exploring the world of web development, then subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your time. See you in my next video.